Hey everybody, welcome. We have a unique show for you tonight. You're going to see Bobby Blackmon in a way that you really probably haven't ever seen him before. Maybe some of you have, but this is a show that he hasn't done very many times in the villages. So we wanted to take this unique opportunity to let you see one of our few honorary members of our Blues Society perform for us. So we have a couple of things we wanted to say first. First of all, the merch, the red shirts that are last year's t-shirts, we're lowering the price to $10. So now's your opportunity to get a bargain. They're vintage. They're vintage shirts. I was just reminded I used the wrong terminology. Vintage shirt. Maybe we should raise the prices instead of lower it. Vintage shirts, right? Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, we've got the elections coming up. Some of our candidates are here tonight. Eugene, Leo, Helen. Stand up and wave to the crowd so they know who we're talking about. He's running for the board. We have 2 spots open. John Vogelsang. He's running as well. Marlon Charles, who isn't here. They're in California, I think. Is that right? And, Steve Tunney, sorry about that. And he's not here tonight. So more about that later, but we'll do the elections. It'll be a poll that we'll send out in December for you to vote on the candidates that you want.
But we are accepting till the end of November. Hi guys, how are you? I got a big mouth, I don't need a mic. We're taking candidates through the end of November though, so if anyone is interested, come on down, the more the merrier, and we've got a really good slate right now, and this is just a really cool thing that y'all are willing to give that commitment with us, so we appreciate that. We got some notes here too. This is a quiet room, which means that some people said, what's a listening room? Well, you're going to find out tonight. Bobby's going to tell a bunch of stories. He's going to sing some songs. And I didn't even know he did this. And he told me that he had done it at Gainesville in the library. And it's an hour-and-a-half presentation that he's going to give you. And you're going to see a lot of things and hear a lot of things about Bobby that you had no idea. He's really had a pretty fantastic life. And those of you that don't know, Mark and I have been friends of Bobby's for, we lose track of how long, 20 plus years, we don't know. Even though we've only lived here 9 years. But anyway, for the quiet room, we do ask if you turn your phones off, please. And just because if somebody's gonna be like, oops, I didn't put it on silent, whatever. And try to keep your conversations down because, like I said, we do try to create this listening room and make it an intimate moment with the artists. So we appreciate you all doing this on the eve of a holiday, and great turnout. And then you had one more thing.
I wanted to introduce Dave Brown. He stepped up and joined our stage crew today. This is his first time, so thank you, Dave. We appreciate all you guys volunteering for everything that we do. One other thing I wanted to mention about the quiet room is we usually run the volume at 95 dB at the back of the room. This is going to be at about 80 dB at the back of the room, which means it's really going to be quiet. So if you get in a conversation, we're all going to hear it. Because there's not going to be a lot of competing with that. So try to keep that to a minimum. So without further ado, beautiful Bobby Blackmon.
Do we have any blues lovers in the house? I am going to talk about the blues tonight, and I'm going to play some blues too. So sit back and relax while we take you through a journey all about the blues. First of all, I'm going to tell you where I grew up. I grew up in Texas. Anybody from Texas? I'm the only guy that moved here, right? When I used to move around the country quite a bit, I'm going to be telling stories about my life. And, it's one of those things you look for a place that you can settle in And I grew up in Texas, but I lived all over the United States. When they used to ask my mom or my grandmother, "Where's Bobby?" They say, "He's staying ahead of the creditors." If I owe somebody money, I just leave the stage, y'all. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I grew up, and then I'm going to play some music for you. So we're going to do all kinds of blues tonight, and you get an idea of where I started out from. I grew up in Texas, a little small town called Athens, Texas. It was a population of about 6,000 people, and it's about 75 miles east of Dallas, and the other towns up there were like Tyler, Longview, and that particular area is where I grew up. And it's, I like to tell people I had black-eyed peas for every damn meal, because they grew a lot of black-eyed peas there, and cream peas, which I can't find in Florida, and I'm really having a problem with that. But I grew up in a country area, and where everybody farmed the land and did all that kind of stuff. And so when we got a chance to hear some music, it usually was country music, you know, because you could only pick up the radio on some of the stations. And I was telling some people earlier, because I have some pictures of my family down here, that my grandfather played fiddle. And I had to watch the Grand Ole Opry with him every Saturday. He liked Jimmy Dickens and all of that, and Ernest Tubb and all those people. And long before I even thought about a guitar. And so I started out in Athens, Texas, like I said, again, population of 6,000. I think it's about 10,000 now. And they didn't have any nightclubs and things like that. So when somebody wanted to hear somebody else, they have to drive about 50 miles, you know, to Tyler or somewhere in that area. And my mom and dad would always take me, because in Texas you got dry counties and wet counties. If they're dry, you really can't buy the booze. And if they're wet, you can buy some booze. But if it's dry, you can take your kid. So my mom and dad took me to many, many places to hear music when I was just a little kid. And got a chance to hear a lot of different types of music at that particular time. And one of the fun things that we did is, my mother was named Annie, and I got her picture up here too. Annie Blackmon, and my father was named Kirby Blackmon, and I got a picture of him. He was in World War II. And so I came up with a small family. I had one brother, but I was 9 years older than my brother, and I called him Oops. My mother did not like that, okay? So, I'm just telling you right now what happened. I'm just starting at the beginning before I started playing some music, sort of give you a little bit about that particular background. So, I was the first grandchild on my father's side and my mother's side. So I got everything, man, you know, all the love. And my mother wanted a girl. So she let my hair grow long, so when you get a chance to cut the lights back on, you'll see my baby picture here. I'll tell my mother, you tried to make me gay. That's just about what she did, because she said, boy, shut up. Anyway, so I had both grandparents on my father's side. I was still also the first grandchild. My grandfather, on my dad's side, they lived about 15 miles away, so I'd spend the weekend with them occasionally. They actually came from Oklahoma, because they migrated to Oklahoma when there was no more slavery or anything like that. And so my grandmother on that side was part Indian, so I was really confused. I go, you know, I didn't know what to do. But she cooked me, I think they call them some kind of little cake she would make and stuff, and I love them too. Because they broke horses and stuff like that, they always have some horses. And so I'd go spend weekends with them, and then the rest of the time I would spend in my little town of Athens, Texas. And so, as a result, I got the best of both worlds until my female first cousin came along. We still talk about that. She's a retired nurse out of L.A. So, and I've had a great career where I played music. Now, First of all, the first time I heard any music was with my parents. So we went to a town called Kilgore, and there was a group playing there, and I guess you could call them sort of a bluesy kind of group. There was 4 guys, and what happened is the 3 of the guys would sing, and the lead singer was a guy named Hank Ballard. Now, I'm going to call out some names tonight. Some of you may know who I'm talking about. And the reason why we went to see them is because they had a song out called Work With Me, Annie. Well, my mother's name Annie. The next song behind that says, Annie had a baby, she can't work no more. Now, my dad thought that was pretty cool. So we would go out and see these people, and it was 4 of them. And the 3 guys would do steps, right? And you could take your kid. Remember, if it's a dry county, you could take your kid. It'd make a difference what age it was. You know, they would hide a bottle on the table, and they would go from there. So the one guy who was bald-headed, and this is the first time that I really just started laughing like I'll get out, is that when they had the song called Work With Me, and then Annie had a baby. Well, when they would start singing the song, he would run out in the audience while Hank Ballard was singing. And so, what he would do is he'd go under one of the tables. I'm a little kid trying to figure what the hell is he doing under the table. He'd come over out of the table with panties on his head because he... And the crowd would go crazy. They go like, Mama, what's going on? Remember, I'm a little kid. And so, one of the trivia things I like to do with people is, and some of you said you remember Hank Ballard. Does anybody know about the famous song that he wrote? I'm going to tell you. That's why you're here tonight. Okay, so Hank Ballard is a guy that wrote The Twist. You didn't know you were coming to hear this stuff tonight, did you? Now, I'm going to play some in a minute. He wrote The Twist. But let me tell you what happened. There was no dance called The Twist when he wrote The Twist. Okay? It was put on the jukebox. The flip side was a slow song that everybody liked because there was no dance at that time called The Twist. So, the song never got played. Now, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. When me and my mother used to go see rock and roll shows. I mean, everybody's been to see a rock and roll show, right? And I got my driving license when I was 14 years old. My mother was 38. My mother couldn't see over the damn steering wheel. My dad loved to play dominoes and bid whist. So he had got a DWI. They took his license away for 6 months. I'm telling you some stories I'm going to play in a minute, too. And so, at that particular time, they were living about 50 miles from Austin, Texas. And she said, you want to go watch a rock and roll show? Now, we got our license the same day. Me and my mother started to book together. And I never forget, the policeman come out there, and he says, Mrs. Blackmon? She says, yes, sir. It's time for you to parallel park. She could not parallel park. She knocked the damn poles down every time. He says, boy, come on over here. And he says, Mrs. Blackmon, do you ever plan on parallel parking in your life? She says, no, sir. He says, you get your license. Do you know he made me parallel park, okay? So I had to do it. Now, because they had took my father's license away for a little while, my brother says, they got some rock and roll shows going on in Austin, Texas. I says, really? She says, you know, you're 14. You can drive, but you can have an adult with you. So I became my mother's date. My dad was playing dominoes. So we're going up down the highway. It's 50 miles an hour, and, you know, down there. And so we get there. And she says, you know, they got this guy on the show. She says, you know, he's new. I don't know who he is. My mother would always listen to the radio, more so than my dad. My dad was a dancer. And my dad got a little look in him. He was like, what was the guy on the Jeffersons? My dad could dance, man. He was all over the place. Anyway, so we get there, and this guy's singing, and what he did, and give his name was called Ernest Evans, okay? Ernest Evans was his name. And this song he had was called The Class. And so what he would do, every verse, he would impersonate a different person on that verse. You know, one time he'd do Fats Domino, next time he'd do Elvis. Didn't make a difference to him, all right? And so Ernest Evans, later on, 2 years later, Dick Clark said, "We changing your name." He's Ernest Evans, and he's from Philadelphia. "What's my new name?" He says, "You're Chubby. Chubby Checker." Y'all got it? So me and my mother saw Chubby Checker before he became Chubby Checker. How about that stuff, huh? And so it was 2 years later, Chubby, of course, comes out with the twist. Now everybody's twisting him. And, you know, Hank Ballard still didn't have a hit. You know, he had a hit in, little small places like Work With Me, Annie, and Annie Had a Baby. But he had to get away from that, say. Now, he did have one song that got on American Bandstand. And it was a song called, "There's a thrill up on the hill. Let's go, let's go, let's go." That's the only hit he ever had. But him and his group, they had hits when we call them chitlin circuits. Now, I don't like no chitlins. But everybody, they called it the chitlin circuits when those guys would travel through the different towns and stuff like that. So me and my mother would go and catch all those shows, and then she'd find another one. "Let's go see another one." That's what. "Let's go see this. Let's go see this lady. She sings, and she's with a big band." Big band? I'd never seen a big band. I don't hear country music. Yeah. Oh, I hit the wrong button up here. Hold on. Where'd it go? Oh, I think I'm stepping on my own thing. I got it. Here we go. So. See, that's all I knew with country music back in the day. So anyway, so now we go to see a big orchestra. I had never seen a saxophone player before. Me and my mother, man, we were going up and down the highway every weekend. We were going somewhere. And the singer that night was a lady named Ruth Brown. And she had a hit record called "Give Me 15 Minutes of Your Love." You know? Pretty lady. And she'd come out, and then you'd have a saxophone player who would come out and basically play some jazz. I had never heard jazz before. At the time, I said, "Mom, whew, that's pretty cool." So now, because me and my mother was going out doing all this stuff, I said, "Let's go somewhere else. Let Dad stay at home." And we would drive up down the highway, and I'll tell you about one of the first blues artists that I saw. And this was in Round Rock, Texas, which was below Austin, Texas. And his name was Lowell Fulson. Now, a lot of people don't know Lowell Fulson, but I'm going to do some of his music in a minute here. And because these are the guys that started so much stuff that they didn't always get the credit for it. And he was the first one that I saw playing the guitar. We got there a little late, so we got there a little late. What happened is we couldn't get in. They locked the doors. It's Round Rock, Texas. So a guy held me on his shoulder so I could see the guy in there playing, And the song went something like this. Let's see if I can get this going here. Here we go. This is Lowell Fulson's song. His first blues that I heard. long, baby. Oh, I hate to see you go. Hallelujah. Let's go. What? So long. I hate to see you go. And the way I miss you, love, I guess you will never know. We've been together so long, we have to separate this way. We've been together so long, baby, I have to separate this way. To go home, baby, let me come back home someday. Roll for some play the guitar. That's where Chuck Berry got that one. You said you once said love me. I guess you changed your mind. You said you once had love me, baby. I guess you changed your mind. Why don't you reconsider, baby? Give yourself a little more time. So long, baby. Oh, I hate to see you go. So long. Hate to see you go. And the way I miss you, darling, I guess you'll never know. Once I love me, baby. Girl, I guess you changed your doggone mind. You said you once had love me, baby. But I guess you changed your mind. Well, why don't you reconsider, baby? Give yourself a little more time. Now this guy, Lord Folsom, later on, he didn't come through Texas a whole lot, but he later on went to California. He passed away down in California. Now he made another song also later on that Otis Redding redid, and it was called Tramp. And then Otis Redding, I think he did it with Irma Lewis, whatever her name was. And he never had another hit. But he played with a thumb pick. He's the first guy I saw. We were looking through the window and everything, checking him out. And but when I heard the guitar, that was it, man. I said, I think I want a guitar. I think I want a guitar. So my mother loved music, but she couldn't sing, and so it was just one of those things. Now, getting back to my little hometown and how this progress started. When I lived in my own town, my mother, I think she did probably about a year and a half in college, and then she didn't have a job after then. So she started to work for this wealthy lady as a maid. And my mother would take me, because I'm an only child, with her. And she would always give me something to read, a book. If there was a word I couldn't understand, she said, I'd ask my mother, and she said, come over here, here it is, boom. And she said to me, if you can't read, you can't know nothing in the world. And that was my mother. My mother always said, she didn't talk a whole lot, but she said, hey, you read. She always gave me something to read. So I'd read comic books, and I know some of you probably don't remember comic books. Okay, so they had a little place. I guess it was a little place where we had a little couple of bars or whatever, grocery stores or whatever. And so I would read everything she gave me, but all of a sudden I started reading comic books. But then again, they also started putting some books out with the verses, the songs in them. So I would get to it thinking like, man, this is pretty cool. Yeah, you know, I don't have to listen to the radio all day long, just learn, you know, the songs that they're singing. So the little store that we had in my little section of town in Athens, I think you could buy it probably for a dime. I'm not sure what it was at the time. But if you bought it back to him and didn't mess up the pages, he'd give you a nickel back. I'd get a nickel from my grandparents to go buy another one. So I'd just go back and they said, there's that Blackmon kid again, trying to read something. Well, I had no idea that was priming me to be a songwriter. Okay, so in high school, I started writing poems. To me, songs are poems. They have a bridge in some of the songs, and we have what we call the hook. The hook is something that you will repeat, you know, that the person is singing. So I said, I think this is pretty cool. I think maybe I'll learn how I can do some of this stuff. And so I would listen to music, and I go like, they just made that rhyme. The hook is something you repeat over and over again. Now, all of a sudden, my mother, who worked for the lady in Athens, Texas, they own the only movie theater there. And I got to go to the movies free as a little kid because my mother worked for the lady that owned it. I had to pay for my own popcorn. Hey, you do what you got to do. You know, so, and I must tell you, one day we were watching a movie and the theater caught a fire. We're watching the screen and we see red on the screen, but it was a projector behind us. And we were on the second floor. And I've never been so scared in my life because I'm just a kid. And I walked over to look down at the other level, which seemed like it was 50 feet. So I'm not jumping over that thing, no. So we only had one door we could get out of because they put us in a projector behind us had caught a fire. So we were watching flame come behind us, and we're all running, trying to go down these steps because we were on the second floor. And we're on top of each other. I thought I was going to die because we were crawling on top of each other. Now the door at the bottom was one of our doors that you lift up like that. Guess what? Everybody crawling on top of everybody else is trying to grab it, and it was closing again. So we finally tumbled out to the street, and nobody got seriously hurt. But then that was the end of the movie theater. And at that particular time, kids, you know, that I grew up with, sometimes they didn't have enough seats, and we'd sit in each other's lap just to see the movies. So when that theater closed up, that was a lady my mother worked for. Her husband died. She married another millionaire real quick. And that's what rich people do, don't they? So she did. She married a guy who was president of the Savings and Loan Association throughout Texas, and they moved 50 miles away. So she came to my mother. She says, you know, why don't you come move? And you know, she says we got guest houses and they actually had 2 guest houses, and all these big boats and stuff like that. And she says we'll pay you, and you and your husband can stay in the guest house. So now. When it came to me, there were no schools in that area because they were 12 miles from the town. And the schools were segregated, so there was no bus. And so the deal we made was I was going to stay with my grandparents, and I spent the summer with my parents. And that's what I did. So I would stay back there and help my grandfather. I get pictures of him too. And we grew everything out of the ground. He built a house I was born in, and had great parents and great grandparents. So the summer months, I started going out to Bernie, Texas. And like I said again, there was no bus system, so you couldn't go to school. And didn't take long before I started getting little jobs mowing lawns and stuff, because by the time I got to be 12 or 13 years old, the lady my mother worked for was very wealthy. She'd have these other wealthy ladies over, and she'd say something like, you know, Bobby really needs a job in the summer. I think you should mow your lawn. And when he mows the lawn, make sure he stops for lunch and have your maid give him a sandwich. I had it good. And then when I would go back to Athens, Texas, this was Bernie, Texas, when I go back with my grandparents, this is what the lady would say. Now, Bobby's going back to school. He's going to need to buy some clothes and stuff, so y'all give him some going away money. They don't give me money. I never had to ask for money from my parents. Or my grandparents. And the lady that my mother worked for bought a B3 organ. Now, she couldn't play, but she bought an organ because she wanted one. And she had 2 left feet, so no matter if she's playing, she's doing on the opposite foot like that. Bless her heart, her name was Maureen Payne. So she also, like I said again, told all the people out there, have Bobby mow your lawn. So I did. So I was making more money than my dad when I was 12 or 13 years old. I'm telling the truth, yeah. Because they were paying me, and I would stop for lunch, and whatever made they had would come out and bring me a sandwich and iced tea. So finally the lady started trying to play the organ a little bit, so it came time for me to buy a guitar. I'd been listening to everybody, and get back to what we were talking about. And she wanted to go every time that we were going to go to buy something for me. And my mother said, oh man, she's going to, but she was a negotiator. And she would go in a store in Austin, Texas and says, we're going to buy a guitar, we may buy 2 more things. So what kind of deal are you going to give me? She wouldn't let me talk. And we'd come out of there with a Fender amp, and guitars and everything else. And so then I started playing parties. I started trying to learn some stuff. And that was when basically me and my mother started going to more and more gigs and stuff. So around Austin, Texas, when I was 14 or 15, I started playing with some of the older musicians around there. And they had some good musicians. Now, a lot of people ask me, was Stevie Ray Vaughan there? No, hell no, he wasn't there. I'm older than Stevie Ray Vaughan would be now. But I played with the musicians there. And I started learning stuff, and I'd come back. Now, I'm going to get back to playing some music here because I want to tell you how this connects. When I went back home with the new guitars and stuff, there was a few kids there in school. They would do, talent shows and stuff like that. And I was pretty shy at that time. I really wouldn't talk like I'm talking now. So I pretty much would, if they wanted me to play the guitar, I said, where's the curtain? Let me get behind the curtain and play something. So what happened is a couple of guys who were out of school said, let's put a group together. I go, what? I said, we put a group together. So they decided to put a little band together, and I was playing the guitar, and we had, another guy playing bass and drums, and maybe another guy singing, because I didn't want to sing at that particular time. So we put this together, and all of a sudden, what I'm calling the bright idea, you know what, we could go to these little towns and rent the gymnasiums and say we're having a sock hop. And we would give you part of the money. And that's what we started doing. We were going from one little town to the other. And whatever the songs of the day that they had out, we would, try to learn some of them. And then we got so good at it, one of the guys who was older than me, was out of school already, he said, we got to put up some posters. Well, back in the day, they called them placards. We got to put them up so people will know we in the area. And so we got to have a name for the band. And somebody said, Bobby, we're going to take your name. It's going to be Bobby and the Night Rockers. The who? The Night Rockers. So I went down and had some posters made, right? We started mailing them up on the telephone posts. The day later, I was driving around. Like I say, I had a car when I was, 15, 16, somewhere in there. And so I'm looking at it, And the picture was gone. The picture they took of me was gone from the poster. So I'm asking the guy that was over the band, what happened? He said, Bobby, we got a marketing idea. I said, what's that? We cut your picture out. We did it. Why did you cut my picture out? Because we're going to tell everybody that the girls love you so much they cut your picture out. Man, we were on a roll in. We started working in with Jim. We started working places all over the place. Okay, now let me play some music. So, Lord Folsom was the first guitar player I saw. And after then, before I saw the next guitar player, we saw Big Mama Thornton. Okay? Now, Big Mama was big. That was the biggest woman I ever seen in my life. She was 5'11", and she blew harmonica. And she's the one that wrote Hound Dog that Elvis took and remade. Okay? Now, the way she did it, it was a growl. You ain't nothing but... I mean, she growled. And she blew harmonica. I'd never seen a woman blow harmonica, but she could. And then her next song was that she wrote was You Ain't Nothing But a Bear Cat. I never figured that out. Didn't make a difference because Elvis grabbed her one day, but she also is famous for this. She wrote Ball and Chains. For what's the name that did it? Janis Joplin, thank you. So I saw Big Mama Thornton. And like I said, I would stand at the edge of the stage because my parents would take me and I just stare at everybody. And on the show with her was a guy named, what is it? Oh my goodness. He had a, forever my darling, my love will be true. Always, Johnny was his name. Always and forever, I'll love only you. And I thought, man, this guy, he played piano. Man, it was British, just a great sound. And then after I saw them, they went to Houston to do a Christmas show. And Johnny Ace is his name. And he also had a song called The Clock on the Wall. And he was playing Russian roulette and killed himself. So now you know I'm a walking history book on all this stuff. Okay. But we saw a lot of people like that. And when I first saw Fats Domino, he was singing blues. Yeah. And he had a whole different thing going on. Going home tomorrow. See, right? Going home tomorrow. Can't stand your evil ways. And that was before Blueberry Hill and all that stuff. When he came out with I'm Walking, yes, then he was a big hit. But in the beginning, he was from Louisiana. He sung blues. Now, the guy that now I'm going to do a song was called Bobby Blue Bland. Now, my mother loved anybody that was named Bobby. Even later on in life, when I would come home from college, man, she'd have Bobby Blue Bland on the phonograph. And because in some of his songs, he had one song they called me Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y. And my mother would play it over and over again. But here was a song that he was playing when I was a kid. It was something like this. Call it stormy Monday, babe. Tuesday's just as bad. bad, just as bad. Wednesday's worse. Thursday's also sad. Eagle flies on Friday, babe. Thursday I go out to play in the village. Whoa! Eagle flies on Friday. Sunday night I go out to play around the house. Wednesday's worse, baby. Sunday's so bad, Lord. Now, Bobby Bland had a guitar player. Play a good song. Eagle flying on Friday. Saturday, I go out to play. Well, eagle flying on Friday, yeah. So I get paid. Saturday night, I go out to play. Sunday I go to church. Lord, I get down on my knees and I pray. That's what I say, y'all. Hey, Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, have mercy on me. Trying to find my baby. trying to find my baby. Won't somebody please sit on to me, Lord? Oh, Lord, have mercy. Man, let me tell you something. That song, we used to go to Austin. We always called Bobby Bland. And I will tell you something. Bobby Blue Bland, if you haven't heard it before, pull him up on YouTube and listen to, because had he played a guitar, we wouldn't know nothing about B.B. King. And B.B. was the man, but Bobby Bland, and they were good friends, but Bobby Bland had the voice. And not only did he have the voice, he also had the arrangements of the horns, because all their recording was done down in Houston, Texas, Don Roby's studio down there. So he had better horn players than B.B. And so the songs that he would put out, oh man, and like I said again, and he was friends with B.B. because they were both hanging around Memphis in that area. And B.B., was from Mississippi. And B.B. was a DJ, so Bobby Bland used to go in and sing songs on the show. And then later on, when you go see a Bobby Bland show, man, and the guitar player with Bobby Bland, oh my goodness, I was just hitting some of his licks. I would stare at the stage. I would sit at the edge of the stage, and his name was Wayne Bennett. And he didn't sing. He just played some hell of a guitar on all the records, man. So if you listen to some Bobby Bland and you hear the guitar player, that's pretty much Wayne Bennett. And there was no contest whenever B.B. would come to Austin, and you turn around and all of a sudden you would have Bobby Bland come. Bobby Bland would have the biggest crowd. His band was just there. And what he used to do, Bobby Bland could not read or write. So what they used to do when he'd be on the road, there was another singer in Houston at that time. He would go in and do the tapes. Bobby would come back and listen to it and then just sing to it. And then he'd go back on the road, man, and he'd have all those Turn On Your Love Lights and all that stuff. And it's amazing, because I think the first time I even saw B.B. King's bus in Austin, I thought they were rich, and I went over to knock on the door. They were eating bologna sandwiches. And my mother, I was so disappointed, because, my parents, they let me go over there. They said, don't bother the bad boys when I go over there and come back, and, because we're traveling down the road. So, now, I'm going to do a song by a guy here that I saw with my mom and dad, because we went to just about every show you could think of. And see if you know who this guy is. Now, this song was written by him, but it was made famous by somebody else. Because as we talk about the evolution of music and blues, and that's why I wanted to do this tonight, is talk about how so many songs were redone. And, like Pat Boone, he tried to what did he do? Oh, yeah. Oh my God, little Richard had a Tutti Frutti. Do anybody remember Pat Boone singing that? Tutti Frutti. Tutti Frutti. Yeah, little Richard. But a lot of that was going on. So this guy, my mom and dad took me to see her, and I'm gonna do a song by him. But you go know it by somebody else. We'll talk about it in a second too. Okay, here we go. Goes on. Oh, I gotta start it again. I don't know. I'm trying to play by itself. Hold on, this is my bad. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Never knew how much I love you. Never knew how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a feeling there's a home back there on your me fever. When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, all through the night. Listen to me, baby. Every word Bobby's gotta say. No one can love you the way I do. They don't know how to love you my way. Give me fever. You kiss me, fever, when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, through the night. Bless my soul, I love you. Take these heart away. Take these arms I'll never use. Even when my girl's gotta say, oh, she give me fever. When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, all through the night. Sun lights up the daytime. Moon lights up the night. Eyes light up when you call my name. I know you're gonna treat me right. Girl, you give me fever. When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, all through the night. Now let me tell you something about that song. That's the guy that wrote the song. Now some of you may remember Peggy Lee. Okay, so she did a big band version of it. But this was during the time that people were taking other people's songs and redoing them. And that was in the late 50s and 60s. But Little Willie John was a little guy. He was only about 5'2". And he was from Michigan. Now, he had some other hits, too, but this was his hit. But it never made it as big as what Peggy Lee did. And with him being a short guy, me and my mother went to see him. I think my dad may have went on that because my dad liked the blues stuff. And the person that was opening the show for Little Willie John, like I said again, a little short guy, was Etta James. A young Etta James. And she had some song, and I think it was something about in the chapel, the church or something like that. But she would come out and she opened the program. But he came out and would sing this song because it's a song that he wrote. And he had some other hits out too that actually some other people redid themselves. And one of them was a song that the Beatles redid. And that was called You Better Leave My Little Kitten Alone. So when you go home and you go to Google, you can pull up some of these people's names. Now I'm gonna tell you something about Little Willie John. He was little and he was only 5'2", and he was really concerned about anybody that talked about his height. So he ended up killing the guy. And he ended up in a Walla Walla prison in the state of Washington. Now he was on King Label, so anybody, if you lived around, King Label was before Motown and some of those things. James Brown was his friend, so James Brown would try to take him money and do something. But he had the song he had, You Better Leave My Kitten Alone. That was redone by the Beatles. Okay? So, now, one of the prettiest songs that Little Willie John made, and it's a story behind it too, and it was called Talk to Me. Talk to me. And he had a high voice. I can't do it, but talk to me, and meaning all the words that you say. Now, There was a group in San Antonio. I haven't told you about me living in San Antonio yet. So there was a group in San Antonio. It was a Mexican band. And this guy, I can't remember his first name, but he could sing the high parts. And so as a result, they put it out, and people go, oh man, this is great. So it hit the charts. But remember, Little Willie John had it out first, right? You better leave my little kitten alone. And so this group went to Vegas. They hired them for Vegas. So they showed up at Vegas, and they sent them back home because it was all a Mexican group. All the guys, they said, no, you can't sing here. But that's the way times were at that particular time. And so Little Willie John, like I said again, he had another one called My Nerves or whatever. But if you pull him up on YouTube, he will remind you of Al Green, because he had the tenor voice that could go up and do that stuff, okay? And he was a little guy, and I got the chance to see him live, like I said again. On the show was Etta James. On the show was another guy who I ended up knowing for a lot of years. He didn't sing. He came out and did tricks with the guitar that I'd never seen before, because we were all trying to learn this stuff with guitars. This guy came out and played it with his toes. Now, I didn't see this guy. I saw him that one night, and I go like, what? He didn't sing. He'd come out. He'd have on a pair of socks, and the big toe would have the sock part of that off. And he'd lay the guitar flat on the floor, and they made him a pick to go on his big toe. His name was Curly Mays. And I thought, what in the world is this man doing? I had no idea that years later, when I moved forward and started talking about college days, and I went to San Antonio, he was coming in doing shows there, and he could do that. He could throw it around his neck and catch it. I tried it one time, and the guitar went out and broke. I didn't tie the strap tight enough, and I went like this, and we'll catch it, and it just kept going, bum, bum, bum. And so, but Curly Mays was quite a character. He had somebody build him a pick to put on his big toe. He'd lay it flat on the floor, and he would pluck it. I don't think he's still alive now, but we used to stay in contact with each other because we did a lot of shows and stuff, and I'm going to talk about some of those a little bit because I played behind a lot of people too. So during the time that I was still in school, here's another guy that was a DJ in Tyler, Texas, which is 20 miles away, and his name was Escarita. Coming at you live today, this is Escarita with the top songs coming at you. Okay? So, and it was, I think his name was like E-S-K-E or something, and Rita or R-I-T-T-E or something like that, okay? So, the band came to, I didn't know this guy was a musician too. He played piano and could sing, Escarita. So one of the guys came through town and asked my grandparents, because I remember I stayed with my grandparents, and said, we're going to go do a show over at Shreveport, and we need a guitar player, and we'd like to take Bobby. And she asked me, what do you think? I said, well, okay, Mom. They said, no, we bring him back. So since he was a DJ, we went over to Tyler, Texas, waiting for him to get off the air, because we could hear him talking. Hi, this is Escarita, coming at you live with R&B song. We're in the station wagon, man. We got a trailer. He comes out to the car. He gets in the car and says, how you doing? You are so cute. What did I do? Now, this guy wasn't the same guy I heard on radio. So here's what happened. So he had a record out, and I really didn't know it because I hadn't heard him. But the record was put out on the West Coast. So some of the things you can still pull up on YouTube. It was called "Oh Baby Don't Shake It Like That" or something like that. That was the title of the song. So we went to this. We drove all the way. Thank goodness I was sitting in the back seat because he was in the front, turning around, looking at me all the time. And so we do the show. When he got dressed for the show, he comes out. He was like, well, Richard, he had a wig on, and I'm going, and he had lipstick on. I'm going, man, I think I play football. I can't handle this kind of stuff. No, it ain't gonna work. But anyway, he says to me, I talked to Little Richard. I go, yeah, right. So we head back, and I never forget this part of it. We got through playing that night, and we pulled up in front of a Dairy Queen, and he said, why don't you go get us some hamburgers for the money? So I go up to get hamburgers. They didn't quite like us, and they said, you better get back in that car. So, okay, get me across the borderline back into Texas. And so the next morning, we're arriving back in Tyler, Texas. We pull up behind this church. I said, what are we doing? He says, I got to go see a friend of mine. I said, man, y'all got to take me home because I'm 30 miles from Tyler. I'm tired, you know. And he goes up, knocks on the back door of the church, and he says, I got to talk to the preacher. He opened the door. It was Little Richard. This was when Little Richard threw all his jewelry in the ocean, stopped wearing that wig he had on, and started preaching. And it was Little Richard. And sure enough, I went back and looked at it later, and he did help Little Richard get started. Now, since we're speaking about Little Richard, let me explain something to you because I'm jumping ahead a little bit, jumping around. When I was in college, I had a little band down at Texas Southern University in Houston. And there was two of us that were in college there. I had two horn players. I had an alto and tenor. And I didn't want to sing then, so I had a singer also. And we had a drummer and obviously a bass player. Now the bass player that we had could never do steps. You know, we all had to learn how to do steps and stuff because that was a thing to do back in the day, right? My bass player was a guy named Johnny Franklin, and he came to me, and he was older than us. You know, like we all 19, 20, and I think he was 40 years old. And he says, "I'm getting ready to go on the road." I said, "Johnny, where you going, man? You play with me. I'm in Fifth Ward." He says, "Yep, I got to go on the road now." I said, "Okay, well, I got to get another bass player." So I said, "Who are you going with?" He said, "Little Richard." I said, "Oh, no. You can't even do steps. You're going with Little Richard." Woo! And remember, the Beatles loved him, too. That's where they got that from. Woo! So Johnny left and went to Europe. I never saw him again. He played with me in one of the white clubs in Houston there. I called it white clubs because there were segregated clubs going on at that time. And it was 20 years later. I'm watching YouTube one day, and they had a thing about Little Richard's band as they were preparing to go to Europe, and they were doing steps to a song. Now my guy could never do steps. You know, we went this way, he was going the other way. That was Johnny. And I'm watching this, and he kept bumping into the other guy on the other end. That was the guitar player who was left-handed. It was Jimi Hendrix. My bass player, think about this, my bass player left me and went to the gig and stayed, and then Jimmy stayed over there too until he did Woodstock. I never saw Johnny again, which was my player. So it's a small world sometimes, you know, because you know, some of the things that you see and hear, it just amazed me. Now, when I finally got out of high school, and before I got out of high school, while we're still doing the sock house, I call them, we had one about 35 miles away. And so by that time, I had my own car. Because my dad said, "You want a car? You want to go buy?" Let's go. See, Dad didn't know that all these rich people were getting me money. I was hoarding that money away. So I had a Ford. I put turtle wax on it every day. I had a little light in the dashboard, which was a green light, mean go. A little light in the back means stop. Now, I will tell you that anybody that rode with me had to pay gas money. I don't care whether it was guys or girls. When I first took my wife back to one of the reunions, and they were telling my wife at that time, "Bobby even charged the girls." Hell yeah, I did. I needed gas money. Now, I'm going to fast forward something about the car that I had, because at that time, I was going to see rock and roll shows up in Dallas, which is 75 miles away. So they came through with a show, and I said, "Man, I got to go see the show." So I tried to get 2 or 3 of the guys that I played football with. And I played football. The other thing also with me playing football, I was a running back. And I wasn't fast. But if you got it down to the 5-yard line and didn't give me the ball, you wouldn't go ride with me. I learned how to sell already. You better give me that ball, boy. I'm telling you right now. So I couldn't find anybody. One guy with me. So we went all the way to Dallas. And this show, this is who they had on the show. The headliner was Lloyd Price, Stagger Lee. He was singing those songs. Bo Diddley was on there. Chuck Berry was on there. Laverne Baker, Jim Denny to the rescue. I still remember some of those songs. And Little Anthony and the Imperials, Tears on My Pillow. And the Crest, 16 Candles. Anybody remember that one? Okay. Now here's something that got me, because we're going to a show, and back in the day when they had them shows, they would ride buses to the different cities. So I didn't know this till years later, because what happened is, we saw the first show, and I think it was like $2 or $3, $4, $5, wasn't much money. And so when my buddy was coming out the side door, this guy comes up and he says, you know, hey, if y'all want to see the second show, give me half the money. I'll get you back in. Wait till the band starts and I'm open the door and y'all come back and sit in those same seats you sit in before. I said, okay, let's do it. Yeah, I want to see them guys again. I didn't know that the guy that was telling us all this stuff was the guy that was with Little Anthony. He was a bass singer with Little Anthony. He sold magazine when they take a break. He would run out and sell magazine. He'd open the damn doors. He's getting $1 or $2 from us to go back in. Now, I didn't know at that time what was really going on. But I will tell you, this year, do you folks know that Little Anthony lives in Florida? Okay. Yes, he does. He lives in South Florida. I didn't know that, right? So one of the guys that I use from time to time was the sound guy for the Villages. He says, Bobby, I got a surprise for you. They were playing in another rec hall. And he said, I'm not going to tell you who it is. And so I'm sitting there waiting for somebody to come in. And him and his wife was doing a thing where they do Sonny and Cher and everything. And I see this guy, and I said, dang, I've seen this guy somewhere before. It was Little Anthony. Little Anthony of Shimmy, Shimmy, Kookaburra, and all that stuff. Tears on, oh my goodness. So we sat down, and I said, man, I saw you in Dallas, Texas, when I was a teenager. He still looks good. And he can still sing too, by the way. Matter of fact, both of us got up and hung out with the couple that was doing the show. And so I was telling him about he said, yeah, that was my bass singer. I said, you know what? He says, I gave the guy an extra $1. We got to see the same show. He says, I said, but let me tell you something else that really surprised me about that show. Because when they used to have the rock and roll shows, they pretty much were like segregated shows. If they had James Brown, they put a rope down the middle, whites on their side, blacks on their side. Sort of crazy, but that's what they did. And this particular show, I watched this group come out, 4 guys, and the lead singer was a white guy. I freaked out. I go, what? Who is this guy? Oh my goodness. And he was singing this doggone song. What was it? Oh man, let me think of it now. Hold on. I'm having a brainstorm. What's it? He later was with, what was the other group? Oh man. It was 2 black guys, 2 white guys. I'm trying to think of the song that he did. It was like a ballad. It'll come to me probably later on. I can't think. It was the Crest, though. It was the group, the Crest. Anybody remember the Crest? And later on, he was a lead singer for Brooklyn Bridge. Anybody remember them? Okay, so that was the guy that was doing it. He came out. 16 candles. 16 candles. My life on the globe. That's a white guy. What that? Because they had so many things segregated, and that's how they did it. And I said, what did you guys do traveling up down the highway? You know, now I'm talking to Little Anthony, right? Because he was friends also with Frankie Lyman and all those people. He said, man, we slept on the bus. You know, But it was a great show because Bo Diddley was on there, like I said again, Chuck Berry, oh my goodness, and Lloyd Price with Stagger Lee and all that stuff. But I'd never seen a group where it was two black guys, two white guys singing together. So that was a first for me at that particular time, you know. So you never really know. All right, let me get back to some music here. Okay, so every time Bobby Bland would come through, he had another guy that would be on the show with him because I saw so many shows, and this guy was named Junior Parker, and he played harmonica, and he could sing, and he would come out first. Now, remember Bland? I told you about B.B. and Bland. Bland had the horns, so nobody's going to sing him anyway. But he had a song out, Junior Parker, called Driving Well, one like this. My baby don't have to work. She don't have to rob and steal. My baby don't have to work. He used to stand at the edge of the stage and watch this guy sing. She don't have to rob and steal. I give her everything she needs. I'm her driving wheel. She left me this morning. Said she'd be back soon, yeah. She left me early this morning. Said she'd be back soon. She'd be back early Friday morning, or late Saturday afternoon. I wrote my baby a letter. Don't want no one to touch the seal. I wrote my baby a letter. Don't want no one to touch the seal. This letter goes to my baby, 'cause I'm her driving wheel. She left me this morning, said she'd be back soon. When she left me early this morning, said she'd be back soon. Said she'd be back early Friday morning, or late Saturday afternoon. Now wait a minute, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you about my baby. I'm going to tell you about my baby. The time she walked. She makes the leaves shake from a damn tree. That's a woman. Every time that woman walks, she makes the leaves shake on a doggone tree. Come to me, baby, where you get your steak, potatoes, and chicken. Yeah. All right. So now that was little Junior Parker. Now little Junior Parker was not little, okay? But he blew harmonica, and he always opened for Bobby Bland. That's the only person I ever saw him opening for. But he could blow a harmonica. And he had a lot of different songs out. Oh, Annie, get your yo-yo and all that other stuff, because my mother, anything named Annie, my mother liked. And Driving Well, and he had quite a few other hits. He was on the same label as Bobby Bland, so they traveled a lot, quite a bit, where B.B. King, most of the time, he would be the whole show on his. But remember, these guys had the horns that B.B. didn't have, and so, and then he did another song that went like this here. This is Junior Parker again. We'll move on to some other. You told me, baby, once upon a time, the girl, love me, baby, you would be mine, but that's all right, baby. I know you're in love with another man in the villages, but that's all right. Well, now that I wonder, baby, it's a blue job. Tell me who's loving you tonight. You told me, baby, love for me was strong. And I woke up early this morning, baby. Your big words are gone. But baby, that's all right. I know you're in love with another man, but that's all right. Well, now then I wonder, baby, tell me who's loving you tonight. You told me, baby, your love for me was strong. I woke up early this morning, baby. Your big words are gone. You see, but that's all right, baby. I know you're in love with another man, but baby, that's all right. Now and then I wonder, baby, who's loving you tonight? When I was loving you, I just couldn't understand, baby. Now you're gonna love me for some other man. But that's all right, baby, that's all right. then I wonder, baby, who'll love you tonight? Now and then I wonder, baby, tell me who'll love you tonight. You told me, girl, once upon a time. Yeah, girl. You said, Bobby, I'll be yours. And you would be mine. But that's all right, baby. I know you're in love with another man, but that's all right. Well, now and then I wonder, baby, somebody better tell me, who's loving tonight? Yeah, yeah. Who's loving you tonight, baby? Somebody's loving you, it ain't me. I'll tell you, somebody. Oh my goodness. Well, that's the way the songs are, man. I'll tell you what. I'm going to change gears here and bring it up. I've been doing all these slow blues songs, man. But it's a lot of fun. And, you know, and the blues is going to live on forever because we used to listen to them at the radio, and I used to pick up out of Nashville, Tennessee, that area, and Del Rio, Texas, Wolfman Jack. Anybody remember those? This is the Wolfman. Ow! Ow! Wolfman Jack. You know, and I think back over my career and some of the places that I played and done things along those lines was when I was down in the Houston area. I went to college in Houston, Texas University, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I'll bring you some more information in. And I got out of there and went up to San Antonio and started working in the band up there, and then I was looking for a job. But, you know, as soon as you get out of college, just because you got a degree don't mean you go get a job. No, and that's, you know. So what had happened was, while I was down in Houston, I was living in a set of apartments, and this guy, he says, man, I saw you take the guitar in and out, and he said, I do a show up in San Antonio. He said, you may want to check it out. I said, yeah, well, I'm trying to find a job, you know, and I don't want to work out in, you know, in Fifth Ward. And I'm going to tell you something about Fifth Ward real quick. One of the first gigs I got, because guys used to come, I went to Texas University in Houston. So a lot of the older musicians would come and hit the dormitories and say, who plays guitar, who does this, and who does this, and who plays this. And there was some horn players. They had a good music program at Texas University. The first gig, and I'm going to come back to this, the first gig I worked, the guy, he said, we're working out in Fifth Ward. I go, oh, jeez, that's a bad one. So I go out and work with him, and it was like 4 or 5 piece band. And this couple was out on the floor dancing, and this guy dancing next to him and stuff, and he bumped into the other guy, and the guy says, man, you bumped into me. I'm playing guitar. He said, man, you meant to do it. No, man, I didn't mean to do it. Yes, you did. All of a sudden, this guy pulled out a hook knife and hit the guy on the bicep, and it opened up, and I'm looking at it, and the band leader said, play louder, Bobby, play louder. I had never seen nothing like that. I said, man, oh my God, this was Fifth Ward in Houston, if anybody been there, it's, you know. And I thought, man, I'm not going to do another gig with you. No, that ain't going to work. So I got another gig over in Cleveland, Texas. We were playing a gig, and that was where, what's the boxer name? George Foreman? Yeah, he was from Cleveland, Texas. So we in like a chapel kind of looking place, I don't know, and we up on a stage, like a stage in a high school, in a band. And we were playing, there's an old piano over there. Nobody was playing it, so we doing our little thing. And we, I'm a college kid. And we were doing a slow song, and this lady's dancing with this guy. Then I see her take something out of her purse. And she's trying to shoot him. I said, what did I get myself into? Just because I needed a little spending cash in college. I ran and jumped on the other side of the piano and hit behind it. Don't ever call me again for that gig, you know. But that's how crazy it was. I mean, and then, like I said, again, this was in the 60s and stuff. So, and by the way, just so you know, the people that were there when I got to college down there, was playing down there, some people, Abbott Collins were there, oh my goodness, Johnny Guitar Watson, who later became famous going to California and stuff, doing a whole, he did all kinds of songs, and he was like Prince. He could play all the instruments. If you have never heard Johnny Guitar Watson, pull him up on YouTube. It was funky because soul music was coming in at that particular time that we were doing this. So, I opened some shows around the world. And one of the craziest groups I opened a show for, getting back to what I was talking about, was Jerry Lee Lewis, the piano player. Them boys could drink. Them boys could drink. We would open my band. My band in Houston was called the Blue Orbits because we had Sputnik and all this stuff going on, so that's what we called it at that time. And I went back and knocked on the door and I said, we're through, it's your turn. He says, I ain't ready to go out there yet. Yes, sir. Okay. They played to their own tune, he was the shaking, rattle, and rolls guy, so what are you going to do, right? And this was in Houston. And when I was down in Houston, the only other thing that I ran into one time, matter of fact, I was in a grocery store yesterday, and a guy that went to a college, Stephen F. Austin College, which is up the map from Houston. And I was telling him I'm a musician, and I said, man, the scariest time I did was when it was a fraternity that hired me to play for their fraternity. So I'm playing at a white club there in Houston, and the guy, he's pretty loaded, and he says, I want you to play for my fraternity. I said, I need a deposit. He gives me $200. You need a receipt? No, I know you're going to show up. You got $200 from me. So it was like 2 months later. We were driving up. We had a U-Haul trailer on the back of it. We put it to this campus. Right? I see 100 kids running at us. Now the guys in the band said, Bobby, what did you get us into here? I said, I don't know. I don't know. He says, are they coming to hurt us? I said, I don't know. I really don't know. Turns out, we had had a flat tire earlier, so we were late getting there about 4 or 5 minutes with the U-Haul trailer. And they were coming to help us load the equipment inside it, the gymnasium, so they could drink and party. And we didn't know what was going on. So we get in there, and he says, I think I better pay you right now the rest of the money because we're going to get drunk. Okay, all right, a different college than what I went to, okay. So he paid me, and sure enough, they started to fight. We loaded up and left. We only played about an hour and a half and made some money. I thought, man, these schools, but that's the way it was back in the day. And when I first got to Texas Southern University, I had played football in high school. I'm going to digress a little bit. And remember, I had a car when I was 16. I think it was a 49 Ford, yeah, with the little blue light, green light and red light. Stop! Anyway, so the job I got on campus was being a janitor for the girls' dorm. And the guy told me, he said, now, Bobby, whenever you go to mop the floors in the girls' dorm, say, man on the hall. You got that? I got it. First day on the job, I go, they come out, it's just Bobby. That was when I started down in Texas Southern University. So, but we had a lot of fun. So now we change gigs here and do something by Eric Clapton and those guys, because music changed. I'm talking about the blues, because when guys like Little Willie John songs were redone by the Beatles, if you had the Rolling Stones, they came over to Chicago and they love Muddy Waters. So, yeah, so this is bringing it up to speed a little bit. Here we go. Right there. I went down the crossroad, down my knee. I asked the Lord for some mercy. Help my education. Down to the crossroad, trying to play the ride. Down the crossroad, trying to play the ride. Seems to know me, passing by me by. Going down the hotel, take my ride by my side. I'm going down the road, take my ride by my doggone side. Sugar Bell House, baby, get spotty on the doggone riverside. Till my friend boy Billy Brown. Run, 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 till my friend boy Billy Brown. Yeah, I'm standing across the road, baby, I'm taking down. I went down to the crossroads. Now, what I want well, first of all, some of the other people, I'm going to name some of the people that I played behind, ladies and gentlemen. When I left San Antonio, I went to L.A. I'll tell you something about that real quickly, get back to some music. And before I went to Los Angeles, because right out of college you're trying to find a job. So I went to San Antonio and got a job with a pharmaceutical company, working in quality control, with a white lab on, jacket on and stuff, because I had majored in pharmacy. And I worked on the weekends at this place called Eastwood Country Club. Eastwood Country Club, we had all type of shows going on every week. It was outside the city limits. It would hold over 200 people. And we did Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. On Friday and Saturday night, we played it till 3 o'clock in the morning. But it would be packed. It was outside the city limits. It was the largest club in San Antonio. You can pull it up, called Eastwood Country Club. So there, and so working there, I was in a band. When I first left Houston, trying to find a job after college, most people think you just got a job waiting. It don't work that way. And the guy that I saw in the parking lot lived in the same little area I live in. He says, I'm doing a show up there. And I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm doing a show. He said, but they're looking for a guitar player. I said, what happened to the guitar player they have now? He said, well, he went with B.B. King. And he did, really. And I met this guy years later, because when B.B. King started doing Las Vegas, the guitar player, I walked up and he was a jazz guitar player. So B.B. really never played chords, because B.B. was he was a twanger. That's how he played guitar. He would do it. That's why Bobby Bland, when I talk about Bobby Bland, because he could do the night chorus and things like that. B.B. pretty much was always a solo. Anyway, so this guy, he says, I said, what do you do? He said, I don't know, man, but get some beats. I told the guy about you. You play guitar and come up. He said, come on, sit up. So I went up there, took a bus, and they picked me up. And I went with the band. The band was like a 10-piece band. I mean, we had a B3 player, we had a piano player, and we had 4 or 5 horns. We had 2 different drummers. One would do the shows, and one would, play with the band all the time. I had never seen anything like this. We'd always have a comedian. Somebody would tell jokes, before the show. This was a show, and it would start at 10:30 at night and go to 3 o'clock in the morning. But this man made all kinds of money. And so he took a liking to me. He said, boss, he says, somebody said, you don't want to play no jazz. You just want to play James Brown and Otis Redding. I said, you got that right. And so I went up and played. And he says, you know what? He says, you come on up here. He said, I'll find a place for you to stay and whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm playing behind all these people that had records out and that would come through. So we had comedians, we had limbo dancers, so it was a full show. And I don't know how long they last, but even after I left, they were still going strong. So, and on any given night, we would have some artist that would come in, and could be Johnny Taylor. I'm going to do a couple of songs with him because he was one of the guys that came in. And oh my goodness, so many different plays. And we have comedians. We had Flip Wilson to come in, and Flip Wilson, man, Geraldine. And we had one lady who used to come in from Alaska. I never seen anybody like that. Let me hear it. All right. I'm trying to tell my stories here, okay? No. So we had this lady, named Miss Wiggles. Miss Wiggles could get in a chair, stand on her head, and take her legs and put them in the air and do three sixes. She was, and they made me like the little MC when we didn't have a comedian, right? And I'm sitting there, I never seen anybody like this lady. But she would pack it anytime they knew she was coming in town. So now, the other people that we had that would come in town was Johnny Taylor. And we had another guy named Z.Z. Hill would come in and sing. And I remember at that time, I had just got married to my wife. And we got married in Monterrey, Mexico, because we couldn't get married in Texas. It was illegal for us to get married because my wife was a redhead. She was white. And We were determined we were going to get married. So we got a bus down. So the night that we came back from Mexico, and they said you had to go deep into Mexico. What you had to do is go to Justice of the Peace. And they speak in Spanish. I didn't know a damn thing they were saying. I was just saying, see. My future wife looked at me, you better say see. And then from there we went over to the American Embassy where we got stamped that we were two American citizens getting married. And if you recall back during that time, there was 24 states, you know, that black and whites could marry each other. We were just in love. That's all there was to it. So we come back on the bus, and I had to actually, that particular night I had to work, and the show was Ike and Tina Turner. And we all shared the same dressing room. And I will tell you, Tina Turner was not a blonde. Now, but let me give you a little secret. Now, you know, when she come out there rolling with the river and the hair is going everywhere, okay, here's what they did. Because we share the same dressing room. So, they take the little straight hairpins that you get, you know, the flat ones, and put the hair down real tight, and then put the wig on top. Remember, she always had a blonde wig, okay? And they would do their show. Now, the other thing that happened, and I'm going to speed this up because I want to say some more stuff, and is that the second drummer we had was a guy named Little Mo, and he did all the shows. They took him, he went to L.A. with them, okay? Now, and he said, Bobby, if you ever get to L.A., I'll help you get a gig or whatever. And I said, well, I'm not about getting to L.A. I'm already working for a pharmaceutical company and working out here. I had no idea that the president of the company in San Antonio called me in one day and he said, I like the way you communicate with everybody here. And I said, well, that way when I started, nobody would speak to me. You know, I mean, that's just the way it was. And, you know, and I'm sitting there going, he says, you know what I like, I like what you do. He said, have you ever thought about sales? And I said, no. He says, well, I'd like to send you to California to work with our top rep in Beverly Hills. We'll pay for it. Tell your wife, don't worry about it. You'll be back. And sure enough, this guy, the president of the company, I went out and worked with this guy, and I came back a week later, staying in Beverly Hills Hotel, spending their money. He calls me in the office and said, what do you think? I said, the guy talks for a living. He said, Bobby, you can do that. I already see that. In you. I go, what? His name was Ted Spears. Later on, he was the CEO of American Optical later, but this was Texas Pharmaceutical Company. He said, I already see that in you. He says, can you and your wife be ready to move? Where are we going? I want to send you to L.A. And I want you to be the sales rep from San Diego up to Beverly Hills where the other guy worked. The two of y'all will cover that part of California. And we'll play the closing calls. If you buy a house, we'll play the closing calls on the house. You get a company car, do 60,000 miles on it, you get a new car, you can also buy the one that you're using. So I went out there, and remember my little friend, the drummer who had went with Ike and Tina. So, because Ike had a studio there. So I get there, and he said, Bobby, oh man, got a gig for you. Where am I going? I said, who am I playing with? He said, they have a rehearsal, but you don't have to go because the start of the show don't rehearse with nobody. And I said, who is it? He said, Etta James. So I had to go learn her music real quick. We went out to Oxford, did a show behind her. I'm working with musicians that I don't even know for the first time, do that. So, okay, this is pretty cool. So the next gig, he says, I got another one for you. What is it? He said, man, it's this football player. He has a show. Football player, give me a break, man. He said, no, just go over and tell them I'll give them your name. They're looking for you to come over. So I went over and I'm sitting there waiting with the other musicians, and they don't know me. I'm just meeting everybody the first time. And this guy, 6'9", walks in the door. And I look at him. I says, I've seen this guy somewhere before. It was Deacon Jones with the Rams. I'm looking at this guy's in the Hall of Fame, right? I'm looking at this 6'9" guy, I'm 5'9". And so he doesn't know me. He walks over to the couch and he says, who are you? I said, I'm Bobby Blackmon. Who are you? I'm Deacon Jones. I said, oh, you with a hospital? A church? He comes over and he picks me up and he started laughing. We did 2 weeks with Deacon Jones. PJs of Hollywood. Never forget this, man. They had a whole band. This is what I learned about Hollywood, and I want to tell this story real quick, so don't be late. So we go out to do the show the opening night. The whole Rams team is there. Tommy Proto, Roman Gable, quarterback. I go, man, I'm in Hollywood. Yeah. Shit. As they would say in Texas. So I'm looking at this. I said, man, this is pretty cool. I look out in front. The Fifth Dimension's out front. I'm playing guitar, man. You know? And so I said, this is just too much. Now, when we took a break, we did 2 shows tonight, 45 minutes. When we take a break, all the movie stars, Joy Heather, the ones there, I can remember a bunch of them. Lance Russell, used to be with the Cowboys and whatever. They line up and take pictures in the chairs, and this is what they do. Next. Deacon Jones in the chair. Next. And then they leave. They just say, I said, this is Hollywood, this is it? Yeah. You gotta be kidding me. But that's the way it was back in the day. And I thought, man, I don't know about this stuff. So I did my little shows, and the second week we didn't see none of them people. See, they knew when the camera was going to be out there. They would come at the first time. So the second week, nobody there. I go back and I knock on the dressing room door, and the door's locked, and some guys were doing some cocaine. I said, that's it, I got to give a notice, man. I'm selling real drugs. I can't risk my career with this thing, you know. And so I quit. So then I thought maybe I want to be a songwriter. Motown had just moved out there. So I went over to Motown. I get off the elevator. I run into Smokey Roberts. Hey, man, what's going on, man? What's going on? This guy really does have that high voice. I'm wondering about him. Went over to the secretary and said, you guys need a songwriter? No, you see Stevie Wonder writes all his stuff. Smokey writes for everybody else. I thank you very much. I put my little thing in play. I came back home to my wife. That's it. I ain't going to play no more. So I didn't play for a while. I stopped playing and did my job. I won the top award. Bam, right away. Gold Cup. So everybody back in San Antonio was saying, this guy's just okay. So then I took another territory. I moved to the state of Washington. And lived in Kirkland, Washington. Anybody from Washington? Okay, so we bought our first home based on the company. And I covered the whole state, so I had to drive the whole state. I had to go into Montana. Now, during that particular time, I also had to go to Idaho. Now, I got some pictures out front. You didn't see it, but I had an afro. I ain't got no hair now. I had an afro. I'd walk down the streets of Idaho and everybody would be peeking out the windows at me. And then the doctors would say to me, because I'm calling on doctors, how do the other doctors treat you? I said, they promote my products. You're going to do that, aren't you? Look them straight down. See, now I learned how to sell and all this stuff. So I'm speaking on something, telling you about my career. It wasn't just, I stopped playing music for a while. So I sold all type of surgical stuff. At that time, I sold dermatological stuff. Then I joined a surgical company and I moved back to California. When I moved back to California, it was a time when I was telling some people earlier who got here earlier, there's a picture of me down there, but a guy put in a newspaper and he called me the Black Hillbilly. Now let me explain that. I had a neighbor from West Virginia that lived across the street from us. She loved country music. And she kept saying, Bobby, you're not going to play anymore? I said, no, I got the day job. She said, no, they're looking for somebody down the street. And I've told them, you can play. And she said, I'll tell you what you do. On Saturday, turn on the radio. When they do the top 10 country songs, tape them and you learn them. I got the damn gig. So the newspaper guy comes over and he interviews me. And the next day is when he put the headline, the Black Hillbilly. I became the Black Hillbilly. So I played for the Hells Angels and the Harley Davidson guys. You know, they didn't mix, so they don't separate them. So that was part of my career. I wanted to share that because what happened was I did that for a while, and then all of a sudden I decided I want to have my band together. So right, I put a band together, Holiday Inn, and I live in Livermore, California. They had just opened up at the bar there, and so I put a band together. We're doing Cool in the Game. I'm not doing country, but the country guys walk in. What happened to you? What happened? So, all right, let me talk about some of the other people I've played behind before anybody catches me on. This guy here, I'm gonna do a song with it. So, now, this guy here, played a song called I'd Rather Drink Mighty Wine. Lou Rawls. I play behind Lou Rawls too, y'all. Baby, we gotta have a little talk. I wanna pick up my damn things along. I know my dollar goes from hand to hand. Before I let you go man to man, I gotta drink mighty wine. Sleep out in the how long. I work for you, baby, like a Georgia mule. My friends say, Bobby, you're a damn fool. Just so sweet as they can be. But before I let you make a doggone fool out of me, I drink mighty wine. Sleep out in the how long. I love you, baby. You won't be fat. Don't know how to be on the square. Have your fun if you must. Oh, Bobby, I'm a woman that you can't trust. You're gonna drink mighty wine. Sleep in a house now. Just as sweet as they can be. Before I let you make a little fool out of Bobby, drink mighty wine, sleep in the hollow. Muddy water, muddy water, muddy water, muddy water. Rather drink muddy water, sleep in the hollow. Muddy water, muddy, muddy water. Talking about some muddy water. Said I'd rather drink muddy water. Sleep out in a hollow. Talking about these muddy water. I'd rather drink muddy water, Lord, and sleep out in a house. Yeah. All right, real quick, let me tell you some of the other people I work behind because I know the time has went by. So these are some besides Lou Rawls. And I've done shows, obviously, with B.B. King. That was in 2010, I went up there and worked. And at the B.B. King's Club, me and the band worked out there for about 10 years straight. And I also opened for Buddy Guy. I don't know if anybody's seen Buddy Guy before. I will tell you something about Buddy Guy. He's a character, okay? He has little bitty feet and a big mouth. And he curses all the time. So this is a good one here. And I know people got to go. So we doing the house of blues, so we go out for sound check. Now, Buddy don't come down for sound check. He's hanging out on the bus. So his band did their sound check first, and then we come in second. Well, his band sat around and waited to listen to us and see, well, okay, who's opening for Buddy Guy? So Buddy was up in the green room. So we got through, and so the guitar player who plays second guitar with Buddy Guy, he said, you know, Buddy's going to have to wrap it up again. He's used to them young cats coming in and he just chew them up. He said, but you can play. I said, yeah, okay. So we did our little show. What I didn't know at the time when we did the show was that Buddy came down behind the curtain to watch to see what the heck I was doing. And when I got through, people wanted to know if I wanted to come over to his table and sign his shirts. I said, no, I can't do that. No, that won't work. And so it was funny now. I must speed up because years later, 5 or 6 years later, I think when we were all down in Memphis, I get on an elevator. We're down there for the awards show. I get on the elevator, and Buddy Guy's on there. Now, Buddy is a small guy. He probably wears a size 4 shoe because he's got little bitty feet. So, Buddy, and he always slumps, though. So, he sort of hang like this, and he goes, "You that MF from Orlando." And we started laughing. Yeah, that's just what he tried. You know, he didn't say MF. You know what he said, right? Yeah, because that's what he got. And he really does drink cognac, man. So, you know, so I had a chance to open for him. Some of the other people I work with, I didn't get a chance to do some of their songs. It was Jimmy Reed. Jimmy Reed's a harmonica player. And Jimmy Reed used to come to Houston quite a bit. And it's funny about him because he blew harp and he had the harp sitting up here. And he was also from Mississippi. And he pretty much would play on the Mexican part of town. For some reason or other, he would draw them. He did. Very seldom did he play in the black clubs or the white clubs, whatever. So I did a lot of shows behind him. Like I said, again, I opened for Jerry Lee Lewis down there, who was crazy as hell. I mean, those guys, you know, who else did I work? Okay. Two brothers, Bobby and James Purify. I did songs behind them. They had a song I called "Pull a String and I Will Get You, I'm Your Puppet." So I did a lot of stuff behind them. Also, oh my goodness, there was so many other people down there because at that particular time, Albert Collins was there, playing guitar, and Johnny Copeland was there. So later on, when I met Johnny Copeland's daughter, I think she's Peter, right? Shamika, right? Yeah. So I met her on a blues cruise. Yeah, Shamika. So I met her on a blues cruise. Has anybody been on a blues cruise yet? Y'all gotta go, man. Oh, man. That's the first thing I did when I moved to Florida. I went on a blues cruise. And it was out of Fort Lauderdale when I first got here. And we had, I jammed with all the pros. They didn't even know who I was at the time. Little Ed, the Imperials. You know, Little Ed came up and played drums behind me. Curtis Salgado was on there with the harmonica player, and he played. Eden Brent played keyboards behind me. So I jammed with all these guys. Bernard Allison. So, and if you've never been on a blues cruise, I went 3 years ago. I went to San Diego and hung out with everybody, including Kingfish, you name it. Eric Gels was on there. And it's just a big party. So if you're a blues lover, go on one of those. It's the best cruise you'll ever take. You know, and they stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Because the jams, that's what it was. The jams were there. And I looked around, I got up on the jam, the pro jam the first night. Kingfish was there. And also Danielle Nicole played bass behind me. What's the gal that Chavez plays guitar. She played guitar with me. This is all while I'm on a cruise now. You know, they just met me. They knew that I was a professional. But if you've never been, it's a fun cruise, man. And they had Booker T and the MGs on there too, man. They were doing their thing. So I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of people there.
Tell them a real quick story about the VMAs, and then we're going back.
Oh, yeah.
About the jam in Clarksdale.
Yes.
Real quick, though.
Okay, all right, okay. So I've already signed up because I'm going back again because the Adams family, I've got to go with them, okay? So we've all signed up to go to the BMA again where they have the awards show, and it's a lot of fun because you got a lot of clubs in there and everybody will jam. Then we go to Clarksdale. Morgan Freeman's club is over there. And you go over there and you can jam in Clarksdale, Mississippi, which I jam with Kingfish there and some of the other players. So they all know me down there. I just don't travel up and down the road like the other guys. But if you've never been, man, you're right with everybody. You have breakfast. It's like being on a blues cruise, except you're there in Memphis with everybody. And then you go have some winners, and like Mississippi, who was just here. And, you know, I met him, you know, during that time too, you know. So that's another treat. Either cruise, the cruise go out of San Diego and it goes out of Fort Lauderdale, but when you go to Memphis, you're going to see all of the people that come in there. You know, even the people that are not, you know, contesting anything, they're just there. So I've been blessed with the career that I've had, And I thank you folks for coming out to see me play too. I wish I had longer because I got so many more stories. Yeah. Because I have been fortunate myself to work with so many people, the Jimmy Reeves of the world, at the jam with all, get all the people down in Houston, just a ton of people. And when I got out to California, I was hanging out with the Watts 103rd Street Band. It was always something out there to do. And but I quit playing for a number of years. So I sold pharmaceuticals, then I got into surgical tools and stuff. And so I took an early retirement with Pfizer. So I went from a sales rep to the director of sales training, to the director of global sales training. I had an office also in Belgium, and to regional manager of New York. I lived in the New York area for 10 years. And I'm from Texas, from a little town, remember, 6,000 people. I never ran into people screaming at each other. Them damn New Yorkers were, why? So, but I was there, and while I was there being regional manager, later on I became vice president of the Northeast area. So I've had a great career. Thank you, folks. I love you guys. Maybe we'll do this again, and I can do some more stuff. Thank you. Cut the lights on. I got some photos up here, ladies and gentlemen. You should see. I got my mom and dad up here. Here's another thing I didn't tell folks about. Let me hold this up. Cut the light off. All right. Let me show you guys something that you didn't know. Bobby Blackmon had a 45 out years ago. Okay. Now wait a minute. Okay. Now let me tell you something about this. When I go out and do talks to young musicians, because so many years people lost money, they didn't copyright anything, right? I did this 45 when I was in San Antonio, like 3 o'clock in the morning, drinking Thunderbird wine, putting orange juice in it, with me and a integrated band, and white guys, Mexican guys. We put this together. I had no idea that I was going to sell it. So the DJs in San Antonio said, we will play your record if you do some free house for us. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So the first one I did, I opened for the Grassroots. The next one, I opened for the Yardbirds, Jimmy Page and the Yardbirds. So I have been out here doing this shit a long time. And so once I opened for all those people, almost 20 years later, I never sold the CD. They played it on air. I moved here. 20 years passed by. A guy calls me one day and he says, Bobby, you wrote this song called She's Gotta Have Soul. I said, yeah, it's a 45. I've never got an airplane. He said, well, we're buying all the masters from this guy in San Antonio who is retiring. He's 86. And we saw your name and that you copyrighted all your stuff. I said, you damn sure I did. So the guy said, we're going to work a deal with you, because we sell these CDs to Europe. Over in England, they have a group called Northern Soul. They don't want to hear anybody famous. And I said, I never got to be famous. And he says, we sell them and we're going to pay you. And I said, yeah, sure. First check I got, $500. Next check I got, $600. I have yet to meet the people who send this stuff over to Europe for me. Okay? But dig this. They have been paying me for 20 years. This song. Now, on your phone, when you get home, this is a song I wrote. I really wanted to be another guy at that time. It's called She's Gotta Have Soul. When you go to Google, pull it up, it'll come up in 2 seconds. It's that Bobby with his 45.